Hey guys, I know I'm pretty late to the ban list discussion video party, but I wanted to wait until after YCS Milan, partially because I think these two things give a lot of context to each other, and together make a pretty solid discussion about the present game, as well as the past, the future, just all the elements of the game that have been sort of swirling around recently. And to start, we can talk about the ban list. There's this idea being floated around that it was sort of an emergency ban list, and didn't really hit anything. And I would tend to kind of agree with that assessment. Obviously, I applaud the Western Konami branches for getting it banned. I'm sure there's probably a fight with Japan, considering the OCG hasn't banned it yet. Maybe there wasn't. Maybe we're just attaching certain expectations about Konami of Japan's attitude about the whole thing that it's not really true. But regardless, it seems like it may have been a pretty difficult decision to make. So they did do that. Limiting Armageddon Night really didn't do anything. You can still summon it off of Isolde, so woo, it did absolutely nothing. I think it was a card that either had to be it really just had to be banned for a hit to make a really significant difference. Malicious went to 2. I think that's fine. It does a lot more than Armageddon Night to 1 does, but it's still kind of whatever. Some things came off the ban list. A Assault Core, cool. ABC players rejoice, I suppose. I don't particularly like the deck, but hey, have your fun with it. And let's see. Dark Destroyer went to 3. I really don't like Cosmo. I don't like Dark Destroyer, but they aren't going to do anything, especially with Emergency Teleport limited. So I suppose they can have it back now. And Called by the Grave went back to 3, which really makes no sense, really at all, why they would do that, especially when they're trying to hit combo decks. They could be giving them something back, I suppose, but it just seems like such a generically good spell card that's even better in combo decks. I don't really see why they would semi-limit it and then just put it right back. Weird decision there. I will note that the No Sooner Than is in January. It's like January 20th, which is only a month after the ban list went into effect. So the only scenario in which I find this ban list to be acceptable, if they wanted to ban Firewall, see how the format shook out, and they're going to go back in a month and clean up some other stuff. But if they don't do that, this was pretty clearly a business decision, not a balanced decision. I think enough people finally complained about Firewall Dragon that they banned it as a business decision. They left Sky Strikers and Thunder Dragons way too strong. I see a lot of people complain about Altergeist. The deck is fine, honestly, and I'm saying that as a Burning Abyss player who has a horrid matchup against that deck. It's fine. I don't think anything needs to happen to it yet, especially in a format where we don't have Max C. A large part of the reason it's as good as it is in the OCG is because they don't lose as hard to Max C as other decks do. So there is that. Really, I wish and I really hope pretty early, like on January 20th, hopefully they release another ban list that hits Sky Striker directly. I don't know what they're going to do. Limiting Widow Anchor, doing something to engage. They just have so many ridiculous cards. Honestly, just like limiting KAGARI, banning KAGARI is probably overkill and might actually kill the deck, which I don't think they need to do. They just have to, deal with it in some way. And Thunder Dragons, I understand that they would not want to hit Thunder Dragons so soon after their release. I don't think they had to hit it directly. Ban Gold Sarcophagus, honestly. And that's a fairly significant hit. I don't think that moves them too significantly. I still think they're the second best deck in the game after Sky Strikers, even with Gold Sart gone. But it's a solid hit that they will definitely feel, and it will make the decks below them. It'll make those matchups a little more equalized than they are now. I think currently they've left us in a format that feels very similar to the Zodiac and True Draco format, I think there's a lot of parallels between Sky Striker and Thunder Dragons and Zodiac and True Draco, respectively. So, just really oppressive decks. Sky Striker and Zoo both are kind of controlling, and they just generate so much advantage off of just like one or two cards. It's absolutely insane. Engage should never have been printed, honestly, the way it is. I won't say it's as good as Spellbook of Judgment, but it is certainly up there with ridiculous spell cards. And True Draco and Thunder Dragons both enjoy the play style of setting up big, very difficult to out monsters and then floodgating your opponent so they can't actually get the means to remove those monsters from the field. Generally not super fun decks to have to play against. Not quite as bad as these combo decks that are just extra linking you or are burning you to death, discarding all of your cards, those sorts of things. Definitely not quite that bad, but generally just uninteresting to play against. They're just not fair in any sense of the word. And meta decks, tier 1 decks rarely are, I suppose, but it's a little ridiculous. As far as combo decks go, again, Firewall Dragon's gone. In YCS Milan, we saw a lot fewer combo decks top than we have previously. Tops were spread out across a couple different kinds. There were still extra linking warrior decks. There's the new Slash Draw FTK, which is a very clear sign that danger cards, I think, are just busted. And I think we all kind of knew this. Unfortunately, nothing is going to happen to the archetype anytime soon, I don't think. They're probably just going to have to ban Slash Draw and hope that nobody else comes up with a different danger FTK that's good. There's probably already is a few, and maybe they could preemptively hit those. But dangers are just ridiculous. The extra linking is still an issue, and there's also Rongo Bongo, although that has some overlap. But anyway, starting with kind of more generic extra links, GUMBLAR, Neospace Connector. Firewall Dragon was overall the more problematic card than GUMBLAR was, simply because it facilitated just so many FTKs. But I think within the context of extra link decks and like these extra linking warrior decks, GUMBLAR is much worse. Because it is one thing to extra link your opponent, it is another thing to extra link them and then discard most or even all of their hand. In my mind, that's where the real issue lies. And if Firewall Dragon was not causing a bunch of FTKs, then I might even advocate for GUMBLAR having been banned over Firewall. I really think that if Konami does not ban GUMBLAR on the next ban list, we're going to start seeing tournament numbers drop. They've generally been more or less up. They've sort of been wavering a little bit, I think, the last few events. The general trend is up, but you never really know when people are going to finally just start getting sick of combo decks. I also feel like after the ban list, a lot of people playing combo decks didn't know exactly what to go do now, exactly what the new builds were going to look like. Slash Draw FTK was not very well known, so we might also start seeing more of that, just in general. And then getting to Rongo Bongo specifically. So, speaking of cards that should have never been printed, Heroic Champion on Gomniad was never printed, to be fair. There is no way that card is ever going to be remotely fair. Either you make it with full materials and you just completely stop your opponent from doing anything, you pseudo FTK them, or you don't. And the second that there's a deck that is capable of doing that consistently, it's completely busted. Ignites, played it for a while. It wasn't that great because Ignites weren't always super consistent. They're very easily disruptible. But now that we have cards like Isolde and Summon Sork to help facilitate combos, we have Bamboozle and Gossip Shadow, we have all the danger cards. The link mechanic as a whole is just ridiculous and can really help in some ways. We have a lot more warrior cards that we didn't have in the past. It just feels like there's just so many things contributing to it, and the card should have been gotten rid of a long time ago. I think it's I think Heroic Champion Rangomnia is probably going to take a lot of cards down with it. Possibly. Hopefully they just ban the card and then they don't hit any more than they need to. Isolde is certainly starting to put itself in the crosshairs. Not starting to, it's been in the crosshairs for a while. But we might finally see that go down next ban list. Yeah, I don't know. There's just so much to talk about the ban list. Talking more specifically about the YCS, Prank Kids won. Dinkabooey himself, who played the deck, he's one of the best players in the world right now, I think. He said himself that this is probably the one time that Prank Kids is really going to get to shine at the YCS level. It's a rogue deck. It's pretty good, and no one knew what it did. Much like World Chalice, it sort of snuck up on people and kind of stole a YCS. I don't think this can ever happen again. It's definitely a solid deck, but I've kind of read through some of the cards. I've played against it a few times, and my impression is that it's just okay. It's a solid rogue deck, nothing more. Certainly not tier 1, probably not tier 2, even kind of doubting tier 3. It is competitively viable. I think you should know what it does. Be prepared somewhat to play against it at a regional, but it's not going to see the same level of success, at least with its current card pool. I don't know if it's purely speculation or if it's confirmed that they're getting more cards. With future support, I could see them being even better, maybe even, tier 1, but with their current cards, definitely. Some decks that disappointed, Burning Abyss and Cyber Dragons both missed top cut. I know there was at least one Burning Abyss player, at least one that bubbled. The bottom, like after Sky Striker and Thunder Dragons, they're definitely at the top. Like I've already talked about, they feel like the Zodiac and the True Draco of this format. You kind of have Altergeist. They're sort of the Paleo of that format. Like Paleozoic got a few tops at the WCQ. It's okay, but it does have some flaws. And then it's just kind of everything else after that. None of it's that good. Like most decks didn't get more than 1 or 2 tops. So there's just so much stuff at the bottom. I don't really consider Cyber Dragons or Burning Abyss to be worse than like Trickstar, True Draco, or any of the other decks that only got 1 top. I think they're all pretty equal, and it's just like happened to be that some of the better players were playing one deck or the other, and some just had a better day. I wouldn't be concerned if you're playing Burning Abyss or Cyber Dragons. I don't think the fact that they were absent in the top 32 is indicative of too much, other than the fact that the format is, after the top 3 decks, especially after the top 2, is a lot more evenly matched. And I think a lot of people were kind of seeing it last format. I think definitely the presence of those really strong combo decks sort of gave a little more stratification to the format that is now gone. Cyber Dragons definitely, I think some of their matchups got a little bit worse. Their good matchups got worse, and their bad matchups did the same. Still an excellent deck, though, I think, for sure. And those are most of the random thoughts, I think, that have been going around in my head. I don't think there's anything else I want to talk about in this video specifically. There are some things I want to talk about relating to the design of link monsters and such, and a lot of how it's manifested itself last format, and I think it's beginning to in this format. But I think that's a whole nother video for a different day. So yeah, that's that. I am going to a regional this weekend. I'm going to be trying a slightly different build of Burning Abyss that should be better than the previous one that was just a bricky mess with 0 testing. And I'll be profiling that. That should be up early next week. And that's all I have to talk about. So thank you very much for watching if you made it this far. I know this was just kind of me dumping a whole bunch of thoughts into a video, and there were parts that weren't very organized, but that's just how it went. And I will see you in my next video.